You're listening to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, where we discuss whatever the fuck we want to. And yes, we can put sex and drugs and Jesus all in the same bed and still be all right at the end of the day. My name is Devanin, and I'll be interviewing guests from every corner of this world as we dig into topics that are too risque for the morning show, as we strive to help you understand what's really going on in your life. There is nothing off the table, and we've got a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into this episode. Hello, all my beautiful people, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast again. I love you all so much. Now, this week, I'm chopping it up with a man named Juan Lee. He wrote a book called Love Made Simple, A Guide to Inner Peace, Contentment and Success. And so we're going to be talking about love and how to be happy this week. Now, Juan has a unique definition of love that he shares with us. We talk about churches and religion, because that's what we do on this show. We're going to talk about living with a learning disability. Juan and I share some of our Air Force stories, because he's a fellow veteran as well. And then we talk about contentment and success, and a little bit about family and all the lovely things that help us get along in this world. I wish you all the best holiday possible, the best holiday that you've ever had. Again, I love you so much, and please enjoy this episode. Juan, thank you so much for coming on the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast today. How are you feeling, my man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so today we're going to be talking about your book, Love Made Simple, and your blog and about your life. We're going to have a delicious jambalaya of all the different seasonings and flavors and everything like that. And by the end of this interview, everybody will be full of love and of life and of liberty and of all the delicious things one could get full on.
It's all wrapped up in love.
So love was a major theme of everything that I came across when I was researching you and reading through your work and everything like that. So tell me right now, Juan, what does love mean to you?
See, that's the way you worded that, right, is what I'm trying to infiltrate and try to get across to people. Love is the system for the protection of humanity. Okay? That's what I need we humans to come to grips with, to understand that we don't have the liberty to make love into being what we want it to be. It is what it is. We can demonstrate it. It's up to us to demonstrate it. It's the action that we put in it that gives gives what you see, to show love. Okay? But what it is a system that we use as humans to protect humanity.
So the name of your book is Love Made Simple.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you write this book, and why did you feel like the concept of love, like the title Love Made Simple, were you trying to simplify the concept? Tell me what prompted you to write this and why that title?
The only place that we in our lives is we have love being taught is in religious structures. And in the process of learning about love, I'm a Christian, been a Christian for over 30 years. I would probably call myself an unorthodox Christian. But the point being is that we find it out to be very divisive in how it's taught, because it's based on one's religion. And it made it very confusing because the message of love and division is not consistent. It's not about dividing, it's about unity. And what does the religious sects do? Is they divide. And they divide, and they divide, and they divide, and they divide. And it's very contrary to what love is. Love has three characteristics that I like to share. And the first one is that it's a chameleon. It's basically takes on whatever is necessary for this whole to succeed. And it embraces the whole instead of the individual. And then the second C is that it's a conduit. It allows us to connect one to another, to flow back and forth with the with the gifts and talents that we have for one another, to make that whole picture successful. And then that it's ultimately a choice. Love is a choice that can't be defeated. You have that choice to love above everything else. And when you choose it, you can lose. It's undefeated. And so that was the premise that I went through, and I had that understanding that we have everything that is necessary to succeed in as a collective when we come together. And so that was where that journey was, to find out how love what love is, to be made simple, because it's not that hard. But I think a lot of us have been confused based on various ways of hearing about it or understanding it. And so until you find purpose in what it's for, you're tossed to and fro. And so what I embarked on doing is to make it simple. It's universal. It's not for one group versus another, or to be separated and pulled apart and said, if you don't do it this way, you don't get it. That's not love. That's not the intent.
So then what what sort of person would benefit, you think, from reading your book? So if I'm coming from what sort of background? Is this kind of like a little bit of everyone? Like what's like your ideal reader?
Well, it's those. Well, ironically, I want to reach those that are searching, those who are looking for answers, because ultimately we're talking about life. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. I refrain from trying to get into religious conversations, because religion is a choice. That's your belief. That's your faith. That's outside of the parameters of what I'm referring to. Because see, I don't need you don't need faith nor religion to work within the boundaries of life, to operate in life. And that's what I'm referring to. A system in life is called love. Love is the system that will extend, preserve, and protect humanity. And humanity exists right here on earth. And so what we're talking about is from birth to death. Anyone who has desires to operate outside of those, that's where your faith is. That's where your belief is. And I'm not engaging that. That's not something that I want to press, because guess what? I think religion has a place. Like I said, I was in religion, I've been in religion for 30 years. But the fact of the matter is that I'm referring to the practical application of love here on earth. It is a system that's meant for humanity, to protect and to preserve humanity.
Okay. We we will. I hear what you're saying about religion and everything like that. In a little bit, though, I am going to press you on some details about your journey through the different denominations, though, because a lot of my listeners are having that same sort of journey. And I think that it's important for people to understand from somebody else's perspective what it's like to dabble in different denominations or religions, or to have that sort of soul searching journey. Because a lot of people are not yet awakened, or they're not yet very solid and exactly where they stand on spiritual matters. And not everybody's going to be able to divide, say, love from religion yet. I agree with you. I personally don't like to identify as a Christian anymore because of how crazy the term is. I'm just like a believer of something more simple than that. I believe in Christ and the Trinity, but I don't like to be affiliated with the word Christian at all. And but it took me a really, 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 really long time to be able, after I got kicked out of the church and everything for not being straight, it took me a really long time to be able to separate God from churches or God from religion and God from the people. It took a long time. And so that's something that's always, I don't feel like can be overstated. It's something we talk about on this show, hence the title Sex, Drugs, and Jesus, because there's natural and spiritual elements to everything. And as we mature, we know how to divide them when we need to. But
If I can
before,
interject something in
yeah,
here, and I think this is probably, it was all about that confusion that you are referring to right there
uh-huh.
that caused me to go on this journey. And what a lot of people have a struggle with as it relates to what religion is. You know, I like to refer to religion, it's a business.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
It's
good.
a business, you know, it's a business just like McDonald's, Burger King, Popeyes, any other one. It's a business. And it's more so just like those because in many cases, they're franchise businesses. Okay. And so to understand that is to be able to separate the message from the business. Okay. And they are doing a very difficult job in separating the two because it has an agenda, it has a purpose for it not to be separated. Because once you get full, you don't need to come back to McDonald's. Okay. But I got to keep you coming back to McDonald's. So I'm bringing out, I've got to find a way to keep you coming back. Okay. The church has an agenda. And I'm not knocking any business nor the agenda of the business. But if you don't understand what your product is or what it is that you're being served and understand that that business needs you to survive, then you're confused when the message and the business becomes very blurry. And so it makes it, I don't like you in my business. It's easy for them to say, I don't like you in my business because you don't measure up to my business, specifically because of the agenda that my business has. See, I got to keep an agenda. I got to keep my the, whatever the philosophy or the theology is. If you oppose my theology, then you're against my business. But the message is different than your theology, and that was the reason for me separating and saying, look, love made simple. We don't need the theology to make good to get love. To have this system that is forever around us, that we are meant. It doesn't take much for us to see it. It's a system like everything else. Humanity is a system. Humanity is a part of a system. It is a unit of the bigger thing called life. Life is a platform. That's where we exist. It's an experience that humanity is a part of. And everything rotates circular in a system. They come and they go. And I think when we understand that, we can begin to understand that we're here a part of a bigger system to invest into the protection of humanity.
Right. And like, well, so when you're saying like the religions and churches have an agenda, I think from my experience, what I would akin to that is like I considered like so whenever they removed me from all my volunteer ministries for not being straight, basically, I was thinking, well, lately now, I wonder if it was because, I was work serving like say in the kids ministry at Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. And so what I come to realize recently, like you said, they have an agenda. Okay, churches go about the business of creating very attractive kids programs. Those kids bring the parents to church, the parents bring the money. And so the complaints started coming from the parents about, the way I was dressed, and stuff like that. That's what the parents, at Lakewood were choosing to focus on. And so the parents bring the revenue, the tithes and the offerings and everything like that. And so I think on some level that they probably saw me as a threat to their reputation, their money stream and everything like that too. That from the time that I got thrown out of church that day, just for not being straight, they found that out on my MySpace profile. That's how new social media was. It took me about like 5 or 6 more years before I ever walked into a church again. But what I'm thankful for is that, that experience caused me to begin to look at church and religion differently and to understand how to separate, people from God. And they're not the same thing, although they are marketed and packaged that way. And I want people to understand, one, that you're coming from like a lot of experience because you've been in several denominations, Christianity. I see you practice Catholicism, Southern Baptist, convention of all things, Lord, a Protestant, Methodist, then non-denominational.
Hmm.
I think it was a Baptist preacher when I was in seminary. He was telling us how they like to control the congregation. This is the one of the reasons I left seminary. He just flat out said in school and in class one night, he was like, "Yeah, our aim is to control the congregation." And I was like, I did a double take. I was thinking that you really just say that right now. And everybody in class was just agreeing with him. But I was like, no, they're like that was another thing. But people just flat out intend to control the congregation and they don't have any qualms about it.
Well, I mean, if you understand the premise that it is a business,
Right.
come on, their classes about business administering, how you administer business. And we have to understand that religion is no different. And when you what to to be able to manage your audience or your congregation is just like managing your customers. It's no different. So I mean, it's not as though it's a bad thing. It's just you've got to be able to it's a business. And I think that's the switch that I'm trying to get across is that there's nothing wrong with it being a business.
Mhm.
You just got to understand that it is a business. And a lot of that message is not being shared. And what that message implies is that the way that organization runs, it's not the message necessarily the message as much as it's how the message is presented and the way that it facilitates the business. It look, most churches promote religion. That's what they teach. That's what they promote. At the end of the message or the end of the situation, they're trying to get people to buy into the religion. Okay, they don't say to buy into the love. They don't say buy into love. They say buy into our system, accept our system, accept our way of doing things. It's not about it's not about loving your neighbor. Not that that's not a part of it. That's not in there. But that's not what they say at the end of every message. At the end of every message is become a Christian, become a part of my business, our business, whether it's Methodist, you know, Baptist. That's our denomination of our business.
Mhm. So when you say that a lot of people commit to the religion, but not to the concepts,
That's that's exactly what I just shared with you because they're selling the religion, not the concept of love.
right? And love is the principal thing. I wonder how. So, do you think that was it money that you think corrupted the church? Like, how did the church get off track? You
Okay.
know,
But see, but that's the whole point. The church is about you can look, it's like it's business. You don't have a business, you don't have a church if you ain't got
right.
no money. It's just that simple. It's you need money to turn the lights on, to run the water, to to buy the check. You need money. It's a business. You've got to have revenue.
So maybe in the process of needing to maintain the business, because I don't think every church started off, evil and broken. I think a lot of them started with good intentions, and maybe along the way, due to growth or the need to stay, maybe they
Well,
lost focus.
I mean, again, there is this discussion, and I think if you hear the word church,
Hmm.
biblically speaking, and I really try not to get into this because there is a divide here because we think about the church in the biblical sense of it is a group of people. You can be up underneath a tree and be in a church.
Hmm.
Okay. That's the people of believers. But what we've come to find out is to be able to, in especially in this day and time, is to be able to house these people, you need a structure to do it. And that structure takes people, it takes money to manage that structure. That structure becomes a living entity in and of itself.
Hmm.
And so it has to be maintained. It has to be, and it can grow just as anything else can grow. And that's a good sign if it's indeed doing the purpose of what it's intended to do. And that's to feed the people.
Hmm.
People that, here's the point. One thing that I heard a long time ago, a church is not supposed to be a permanent place. It's just a rest station. It's just a place to stop on your journey. We make it our homes, and they want it to be your home. You go in there, you find that you get that fill up, and you keep it moving. But we've made it our permanent rest spot. And then now, and when you do that, you have a tendency to take ownership or want to take ownership. Now, you think about the concepts of what God or Jesus talked about, and he was talking about, you don't need a whole lot because on your journey, you got these filling stations. Those that think like you, that engage in what you engage in, they'll fill you up and you still keep on your journey. Okay. But we found out that we get to the doggone filling station and stay there and think that, and we get as big as a tick and about to explode. And then what you do with it, your journey it's stymied. So in that regard, yeah, it's a different purpose. But we're talking about a structure that, for the most part, when you think about somebody kicking you out of who you are, that doesn't even make sense. How can somebody stop you from being who you are? And that's the power of love. Can't nobody stop you from being love, they're administering love, but yet they're gonna kick you out. How they do that? How is that possible? It's because of the business, and you don't represent what they want.
See, I
Like,
love I love the way you described all that. I know you say you don't really like talking about this stuff, but I know you had such a good stuff in you. So thank you for going there for my audience. Is the way you described that I thought was very, very brilliant right now. And there's a lot of people who need a strong message like how you just said to help them make a decision that maybe they've been thinking about doing for a long time. So I know you say it's not really your thing, but you just preached right now. So,
here's the thing. Here's the thing I want your audience to know. It's okay. It's okay. This I've spoken to your audience, the audience that you represent, a lot of the people that have been struggled, that have been ostracized because of who they are. And I struggle with the fact of the way they identify themselves as they find the place where they can feel normal, feel accepted in the non-believer sect. And I'm saying to them, don't why- by identifying as a non-believer, it's saying that it's something that you can't be who you are. It's okay to be who you are. You don't have to identify with anybody to be able to justify or to have a, but I understand it's a space. They're trying to find a space. And I get it. But the fact of the matter is that you are who you are. And it's okay. And just accept the fact that you are okay in who you are. Now, there is a lot to unpack in who you are and who we all are. But who we all are uniquely made. We are sufficient and we're necessary. And that's that that's that chameleon that I was referring to. It's when we come together, we all succeed. It doesn't matter our differences, their uniqueness. They are not things to divide us. They're to make us better and stronger.
Well, I wish more people had your point of view. Let's see. So you are a speaker, you're a founder and an education director of a nonprofit, and of course you have your book. And I found this fascinating that you've been able to accomplish this because I read and saw that you had some sort of learning disability that wasn't diagnosed till you were 37. And so I'd like to know what the actual diagnosis is, why you think it took so long for somebody to pinpoint it, and then just to, congratulate you for overcoming it and to come as far as you have. So what was the diagnosis and why did it take so long for somebody to figure that out?
Well, I'm going to run it all of those. I'm going to give you all of that information, but I want it to be very clear. It is not something that I overcome.
Okay.
I navigate.
Okay.
Okay. And that needs to be clear because, you know, that was my hang up for a long time was why me? Why me? Uh-uh. It's not about why me. It's why not me. And why not me? Because it's not about what I can't do and what I don't have. It's about using what I do have and finding out that uniqueness in me so that I can give it to the world, give it to humanity. So that struggle, that journey, how did I find out why wasn't I that? I was, I was in grew up not measuring up in school. About seventh grade, sixth or seventh grade. Actually, before that, I was falling behind, and I fell behind, and then they just put me into special education and pushed me through the system. Led me to a place of where I was extremely frustrated and hopeless. I didn't know why I didn't. I had a desire to want to, but couldn't. I wanted to learn, but I couldn't. And I was labeled as a disciplinarian because I was frustrated. I mean, one that I had no discipline. I was not a disciplinarian. I mean, I was basically a discipline problem. And so I got into the Air Force, which was surprising then and a miracle to me. And it was in there that I understood how love worked because the actions I had heard about love, but the fact of the matter is what made love work? What what was the thing that precipitated the actions of love? And when in the military, everything in the military is a system. The reason that that big oiled machine runs the way it runs is because it's a system and it reproduces itself every day. I mean, we can put anybody into that system and it works. But the things that you need to have in that system is that you got to have the right attitude. You got to have the right attitude, and you have to have the one single goal. You don't have to be the same. You don't have to do the same thing, but collectively, we all have to have the right attitude to be able to accomplish the mission. And the mission, the bigger mission, was very simple. And if you had a uniform on, no matter what branch it was to protect and to preserve the United States of America. It was to defend it from all enemies, domestic and foreign. That was the single goal that those attitudes were to administer. And that was what love does. Love basically has a end goal, has a goal to protect and to preserve humanity. And the right attitudes of love makes it happen. And that's how I've come to this point in writing Love Made Simple, because it's all about an attitude. That's where it all comes down to, is when we begin to change our attitudes, not only about ourselves, but about those around us, when love will prevail. And it will begin to meet the objectives that we put out for not only ourselves, but for humanity.
Okay. So what was the official diagnosis? I want to get some clarity on that, because people, I think it's such a cool thing. Well, that that you're willing to be transparent about it, that you found a way to navigate it. But learning disabilities and things like that, there could be somebody with similar,
I
struggling, don't know that maybe they might, you
I
know,
have a memory deficiency.
okay.
A memory deficiency. I was 37 years old. After I'd gone through the military, come home, gotten married, I was still struggling.
Okay.
And the struggle it was a ghost that I didn't understand why I was struggling. I mean, the desire, everything was there. But the fact of the matter is that it just wouldn't connect. It wouldn't stay. Shucks. I still to this day, if I hear you introduce yourself to me, as soon as you said it, I forgot it. I have to repeat it. And that's why a system was perfect for me, was perfect for me to get into that system and then allow me to be successful, because all I have to do is hook up to that system, and then it becomes second nature to me. Then I can respond, then I can do things, I can operate inside of that system. But I went to a doctor, a PhD, and he gave me a test. And the test showed that I had I had this memory deficiency.
Hmm.
And that was the clarity of me understanding that it wasn't me.
Hmm.
It wasn't me. It had nothing to do with my desire. It was what I had, and it wasn't going anywhere. But that didn't mean that I couldn't succeed. It didn't mean that I couldn't be successful. But I had to find me and not someone else, not being compared to anyone else. I had to be me. And when I began to find out who I was, then I was able to shine in being all that I could be. I could really begin to walk proudly in who I was, because I knew I was important, that I had what was sufficient, and it was necessary.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your service. 9 years in the Air Force. I did 6 years myself in the Air Force. So when I was reading up on you, it seemed like you had some sort of a shift that happened, or a revelation, when you were at tech school at Wichita Falls. You, I felt like it seemed like if I recall from the reading, like maybe that was when you first had the aha moment that this Air Force thing was going to work. Because at first, when I was reading, you went to the Air Force trying to kind of get away from school, and then you ended up in the Air Force. Of all the branches, is very schooly. It's very schooly. And so then you find yourself back basically in school again, which is what you're trying to get away from. But then when you got to tech school, it seems like that's when something clicked and you knew that it could work.
Well,
Or
it wasn't necessary. It wasn't really tech school. Actually, it was basic training.
okay, it was in basic.
Basic training, basic training was the example, and maybe it wasn't clear, but basic training was when, I realized that I couldn't keep hiding. I couldn't hide because I'm still ashamed of who I am because I'm in the Air Force, but everybody's there and it's all about academics, but the mission was greater than the academics. The mission was because this is where I began to see that it didn't matter if I measured up because what I had was important. It was unique. It was different. And they needed me. And so what happened was I failed the reading test in basic training. And every day when we had to do extra duties,
Mhm.
I was exempted from those extra duties to go to remedial reading classes. And I was ashamed of that because all of my flight was doing details and I didn't have to go. I was going to do something else. I was going to help prepare myself to be better. And that was okay because they had my back, because their success was my success. My success was their success. We had to realize that we needed each other. We needed each other. And that was very clear in basic training because I never forget one of the early things that we did. We remember you had to run a mile and a half in basic training. And it wasn't about running a mile and a half. It was about running a mile and a half together in formation. I remember the first time he told us to run a mile and a half, he put us in formation. He said, go, blew the whistle. And I took off and we were spread out all over the track. And he said, stop. He blew his whistle and said, stop. No, y'all missed the point here. It's not about running a mile and a half and seeing who can run it the fastest. It's about all of you running a mile and a half together. So whether or not you're a gazelle or elephant, you got to stay together. So for you gazelles, hold up. For you elephants, you're going to have to push it. But you all got to be together. And that was the example. That was the message that I realized that this thing was not about me. It was about us. It was about us succeeding. And that was the message of love. It was about us succeeding. Humanity is bigger than just me and you. We're just here for our season of this cycle for humanity to continue.
Of all the stories I've heard about the way people benefit from going to the military, I'd have to say yours is probably the most unique. Even and I was an Air Force recruiter, and so I know the reasons why people have come to the military because I recruited them and put them in myself. But yours is very, very different. I'm very happy for you that you were able to find the structure that the structure of the Air Force worked for you. And many people come to the military when nothing else will work. They've come to escape gangs. They've come because the judge told them either jail or the military. They come from all free education, all kinds of reasons and things like that. And so who knows, that might be a consideration for somebody for, I know I would have I didn't. I'm so glad that they really, really worked with you like that. They didn't send you home or nothing like that. The people you had a good team of people, who got behind you and believed in you. And what I'm excited about is that you seem to be paying that love forward now. You're perpetuating, you're giving away that which you have received, which I think is a central message of all the work that you're doing.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you got to understand, I didn't pass that test until my first duty station. And that duty station, there was a cutoff. It was 1 year. I had to pass that test within my first year in service. If not, they was gonna generally discharge me. And I honestly don't know if I ever really passed that test. But I spent 9 years in the Air Force. I got out as a staff sergeant. And when I got out, I had everybody around me asking me why, because I got out under the SSI VSI program after Desert Storm. And that's when, they were reducing the force. And I got out. I had already re-enlisted to do 12. And they were like, we don't want you to go. From my commander all the way down to my supervisors, we don't want you to go. Why are you leaving? We want you to stay. And I was like, at that time, it was the time for me to go. I mean, because it was interesting. I only qualified for that program, that SSI VSI, by like 30 days. If I had came in 30 days later, I would not have qualified for that program to get out. And they paid me to get out. And that's what I did. I took the money and went. Went.
Sometimes what you got to do, take the money and go.
Yeah.
Get out while you can. Did you serve over in the war?
Yeah. I was in Saudi Arabia doing shortly after the invasion started. I got there after. Yeah, I was there.
When I was in, I tried to get them to send me over. I was in during 9/11. I was fresh out of tech school when 9/11 happened. And I tried to go, but they never would send me, not different job classifications from different bases, go. So that's, I mean, I would commend you again for serving, in an actual war theater. And
Yeah.
thankfully you made it back. So
Yeah, we was there. Was Schwarzkopf around when you were then? Schwarzkopf was the commander of Desert Storm first, the first Gulf War. If it was up to him, we'd have still been there. He didn't want us to come home. We was gonna leave everybody there, and he was like, "No, you'll surely still be here." But it was one of those ideas that we don't come anywhere to win nothing and leave. Like, you might as well pitch your tent.
do you have one specific memory or something from serving in the war that you would care to share?
I'll be honest with you, it was a unique opportunity. And understand, you've been serving in the Air Force. There's no branch like the Air Force.
Right.
There's no branch like the Air Force. And so when I had my experiences coming back home, talking about what my experiences was doing Desert Storm, I could have said I was in the neighborhood store. I mean, the neighborhood down the street, because that's how exclusively we were separated from the actual combat. I was attached to a fighter wing, and we went to work just like we did every other day, but we did it in Saudi Arabia.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay. So I want to get a little bit deeper into your book. What we've talked about so far has been pulled from a blog on your website and just some general life history on you, although we have touched on this. So your book has several chapters, and what I pull the most from is you actually have a very nice synopsis of the themes right at the beginning of it. And so I want to go through a few of those so I can get a deeper understanding of your thoughts on it and your take on it.
Mhm.
So And so I will start well, since we're talking about the military already, like we'll start with sacrifice. And you say that's giving up something for someone else's benefit and loving without fear of loss. Tell me deeper what that means to you. Do you see that happening in the world around us or not quite?
No, I think fear is the key word there, because fear prevents us from being able to truly love, because we're afraid of losing something, because it takes sacrifice to love. It's you have If there's one word that would exemplify love, is sacrifice. And we are not inclined to want to do that. But what I'm suggesting is, if we're able to recognize the value in that sacrifice is for the greater good, then that sacrifice is an investment. It's not a loss. It's an investment. And that's the bigger picture that we have to try to understand, is that we're living a temporary thing. This life is temporary. We want to call it short. No, it's as long as it's going to be. Okay. It is what it is. It's temporary. Okay. And with that idea is to sacrifice, or to invest that temporary experience into something bigger than you and I. That's love.
Okay. Let's see. Now, humility, you say, is being free of arrogance or pride. Was there an experience in your life that you felt like brought you to your knees, or to learn humility? Or is this something that maybe you didn't struggle with so much? Or
It was an unknown diagnosis of a learning disability.
okay.
I had to be humble. That's the key element of having that weakness, is that you have to be willing to accept help. See, I have to I have to solicit help to this day in areas where I don't. There is a time element that we all are up under, and the way that we are most efficient or most productive in this time element society that we live in is how much you can get done in a little bit of time. And so I have to gather help to assist in the amount of time that I have to try to accomplish something bigger. That's why I'm saying I need help. The reason why I'm here on your platform is because I need help. I want people to want to engage this message of love with me. I'm not here just to tout my horn and toot my horn. It's to I need people to get involved with love, to help me promote love in this world. Can't do it by myself. I have to get down off my opinion to think that, yeah, I wrote this book, and it means nothing if people aren't willing to engage it and embrace it and be a part of it.
I
Uh,
wish that I had had more humility back when I first got HIV, and I didn't have enough humility or the willingness to be vulnerable to ask for help. I didn't know how to ask for help. I hadn't really needed it up until that point in my life. I was able to fix everything. I was almost 30 years old, and oh yeah, I had just turned 29, and it was and I mean, I went down a very self-destructive path. But had I just simply reached out for help, I could have been on a completely different trajectory. And so, but getting HIV was the thing that made me realize that, I wasn't going to live forever. My invincibleness of my 20s, was dashed, into pieces then. And then I was finally broken enough to learn, true humility and everything like that. I was prideful and didn't realize it. And so I think it's good for us to have a little thorn in our side just to to keep us, in a good mind space of being able to ask for help when we need it because it can cause us to avert so many problems.
You are absolutely right. And that's why I started you asked me about my learning disability. That's why I said it's not gone. It stays with me every day for that very reason that you just talked about. It doesn't take much for me to realize that I am not, cannot do this on my own.
Right. And now courage, you said, is staring down difficulties or even staring down death without fear. How does one gain courage if they don't have it?
Well, it's again, it's that attitude of love. See, when you've already given your will away in the sense that you've sacrificed your way, there's no, I mean, you're all about service at that point. And so because of that service, there is no fear there. And that's where courage comes from. It's to remove that fear. And some people think that fear is what creates courage. But the fact of the matter is that it's interesting because people, courage is what people see. That's what people see. They want to call you a hero. That's what they see. But the fact of the matter is what causes you to do it is on the inside of you. And if your fear outshines whatever the circumstances are, it's very interesting in certain branches of the military. Um, the they want you to, in spite of your fear, because that's basically you're gonna go do something knowing that the possibilities of you returning are slim to none. But that's deemed as courage. But in actuality, what I'm referring to is to removing that fear because of you've already given your all. Intellectually in your mind, you've already sacrificed it all. So then to go into circumstances that doesn't look to your advantage, look that you're going to be able to make it. It doesn't matter what it appears to be like. You've already given up all that you have in the process of getting to that point. You get what I'm saying? You understand? I mean, it's really a process. So when that comes time, it's just what you do. It's not if you do it.
Yeah, it's all about attitude. And like you said, it's a process. So for somebody who may be on this sort of, life path journey, trying to figure out ways to show more love, love themselves, to love other people, you know, this is probably not gonna happen, like overnight, so we gotta be patient with ourselves and with as we're trying to grow and mature and to develop. A thing with me is I was always in such a rush, and even for good stuff, I wanted to hurry up everything, hurry up and get to the degree, hurry up this project, hurry up this task. I was always hasting to get everything done, and if it didn't get done quick enough, then I felt like I wasn't doing a good job. It's something about slowing down and being present in the moment that I was really slow to catch on to. and 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 I think love is still at the center of that because it took a long time for me to truly love and accept myself fully. And so, and I think that that's a big thing that has to happen before people can do, you know, a lot of what you're talking about is self acceptance because you can't give away what you don't have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely true. And if it's okay, I'm going to interject something right now. I'm creating a course and it's to go through this process of how to navigate life. And there's phases, steps to it. It's first understanding life, then actually self-development.
Mhm.
It's personal development. And then it talks about, it's about relationships and how it impacts your life journey. And then it goes into problem solving and decision making. And then ultimately it goes into money management and how to manage your life. It's life and money. It's the process that we have to do to be able to get to, because sometimes we get to making decisions and solving problems before we know who we are. And then we're making decisions that are contrary to who we are. And we're basically digging ourselves in a hole, because then we get to a point where we can't begin to understand what the decisions, how they've impacted who we really are. So it's a process that you got to go through, but it stems from a place of understanding as it relates to what's supposed to be happening here. What is the end goal? See, we get into life and get to running and jumping and before we know it, we're at a point where we can make decisions that are long lasting, life changing. And we could have prevented them with some knowledge, but you can't go back and undo them. You could have prevented them with the right information, but you can't go back and redo them. You get no mulligans in life. You get no do-overs. And what we end up living is some consequences to some choices. And so that process that we're referring to is that you can't put the buggy before the horse. And what I do, and what especially with the clear journey, is that I want to give young teenagers and young adults the ability or the opportunity to avoid some pit holes and some obstacles with some understanding so that they can navigate life more successfully.
Right. So speaking on relationships, you say that family is a framework to establish and experience love in your life. Do you feel like this family has to be your blood family? Could it be your military family? Could it be, your closest relationships? How are you defining family here?
Well, family in that regard is your biological family, because it is the natural way of development. It's natural. Now, all those other things that you've said, they are possible. They are families also. It's like when I was in the military, that was my family. That was my posse. That was my tribe. That was everything. That was us. That was our flight. But what I'm referring to in this life is in this insane family is that we've got to understand and recognize the role of the family is being devalued. And it's being devalued in a way in which you can't avoid it. You can attempt to devalue it, but anything that you do is it will be an adjustment. It's an adjustment. See, to be a part of a family implies, if you are a child, that you are a responsibility of someone else. If you're a parent, that you have responsibility for someone else. See, that's a connection that can't be broken because of the understanding that the family gives. There's no other relationship that comes with that innate bond. It's no other place. And that's where it starts. Now, if either part in that feels that they don't want to or fulfill their role in their position, that's going to be a problem that you're going to have to adjust to. If you're a parent, you're going to have to adjust to a child not representing you the way you think that they should. If you're a child and you're not being cared for the way in which a parent was supposed to care for you, you're going to have to make some adjustments. You can't avoid them.
Right. My mentor, that's one lesson she always, Evangeline Nelson, when she was alive, she always would tell me that, especially when I was a teenager before I went to the military, the importance of being able to adjust in life. And I still was hard headed and set in my ways a lot of times, more so than I realized. But the adjustment factor is huge. And okay, so the last question that I'm going to ask you, and then after that, you can just give us like, I always let my guests have the last word, whatever sort of wisdom that you want to impart into the world. But so the last question I have for you revolves around like your definition of contentment. So in the book, you say that's a state of being satisfied with your abilities, with a mindset to grow. What is contentment? What is success? How does somebody get to the point where they can say, you know what, I have a good life. I'm doing the damn thing. You know, two thumbs up for me. How do we get there? What does it look like? How does it feel?
Here's what the that's a combined thing here. Success for each and
Hmm.
every one of us is peace. That state of mind of clarity. Everything else monetarily and naturally flows out of that peace. We have to maintain that peace. We've got to get it and work to maintain it. And it becomes very easy once you understand the system of what it is that you're after. And when you say contentment, contentment is a very important part of being able to maintain that peace because it allows you not to compare, but live within your abilities. Don't worry about what somebody else has. Just operate in what you have. Now, as you develop in that process, you will gain more insight as it relates to what can be consumed in that piece that we're talking about, but it's always being conscious of maintaining your peace. It's that place where it allows you to not to worry, to be concerned, to be anxious, to be to be thought of having fear, but to be very content on the inside, being confident as it relates to who you are, what you are, and how you present yourself. That's success. We've allowed the world to define success for us when it's ours to maintain and to possess ourselves. We think that it's external, it's internal. And so that is the way in which we operate in this life. That gives you the two thumbs up because no one else can gather. I mean, and I'm telling you, in the most trying times, people are trying to get peace and it eludes them. I'm talking about being able to have peace no matter what the times are, what the circumstances are. That's success.
Okay. That that is my goal. And I think that it's a good goal for us all to have. And at the end of the day, not being affected, and especially with the chaos of the world around us now, is a strong thing to be able to aspire to maintain. To not let the outside influences affect us is a noble goal. So with that, Juan, would was that your final word? Because or was there more that you
Well,
would love?
I'm gonna wrap it up with this then to say this. The three things that I told you about, the three C's that we're talking about what love is. And I said that it was a chameleon, it was a conduit. And I don't recall if I ever told you what the third one was. And it's a choice. It's a choice. Every day, every moment, every time, every situation, we possess the power to exemplify and administer love through our attitudes towards situations. And they're beneficial and they benefit not only humanity, but us as individuals. It keeps us humble. It makes us realize that the things that are important are collective, not individual. It doesn't divide. I don't have to be defined as an individual. It's okay. I have uniquenesses. They can't be taken away from me. It's our opportunity to invest into something bigger than ourselves. Love made simple is for all of us.
I love it. I love it. One, I like the way you define love as an opportunity to invest in ourselves because everybody wants to do better. So thank you very much for writing this book. If people wish to contact you, I intend to put your website in, so all your social media will go in the show notes. Is there any specific way you would prefer people to contact?
If they want to get in touch with me, again, you can always email me at info@juanleetheauthor.com. And if you do, I'll be more than happy to send you a newsletter that I have out, and it's talking about confidence. So send me an email. Let me know that they heard me on your show, and I'll be more than happy to, and just engage with me in general. Let me know where it is. And I'm here to, again, this is not mine. This is ours. Love is for us all. And again, everything that I do is under the umbrella of the new nonprofit that I have called Clear Journey. And so if you buy the book or if you buy the course that's coming out in the future here, it all goes to fund and support the nonprofit. So if you want to be a part and to support the whole, the unit, the nonprofit, be a part, contact me. Let's talk. Let's see how love can help you in your journey.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Juan.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all so much for taking time to listen to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. It really means everything to me. Look, if you love the show, you can find more information and resources at sexdrugsandjesus.com or wherever you listen to your podcast. Feel free to reach out to me directly at devannon@sexdrugsandjesus.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. My name is Devannon, and it's been wonderful being your host today. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.